everybody doing today? Back again with another video for you guys and gals. And today, what I have for everyone is my versus / comparison video between the LG Stylo 3 and the Motorola Moto G6. Now, jumping right into it, the first thing I want to talk about with you guys and gals is the overall build quality and design of both of these devices. And at least when we talk about these two, you couldn't have a more different set of devices compared against each other. So, talking about the overall build quality, let's start off with the LG Stylo 3. Henceforth, going on in this video, we'll just call it a Stylo 3. The Stylo 3 is made out of plastic and glass. And in terms of the overall build quality, I have to say LG did a great job on this one. All the buttons are very tactile and very clicky, and it actually feels very good in the hand. It has a nice balanced weight to it. It feels very good in the hand. So in terms of the build quality for the Stylo 3, it's top notch. Okay? Now, talking about the design of the Stylo 3, again, we have a plastic and glass design. And in terms of design, we have a built-in fingerprint sensor on the back, which is a nice touch, which also doubles as your power button. And we also have a removable, expandable back on this guy. So you can remove and swap the batteries, and you can expand storage as well with a nice stacked SIM tray. So really nice design. Put the back on this. Also, LG incorporated into their design a nice little stylus pen area. So you can see we do have stylus support on this device as well. But that being said, again, in terms of the design, I think it's really nice, and it has a nice feel in the hand and a really nice build quality. So in terms of build quality and design for the Stylo 3, it's top notch. Now, jumping over to build quality and design on the Motorola Moto G6, henceforth the Moto G6 for the rest of this video. In terms of overall build quality, this device is made out of all glass and metal. Alright, so you can see we have our dual cameras on the rear, Motorola logo, which is a nice touch. Then we got our display up front with our fingerprint sensor, which is really nice. And then we got our buttons on the side. And I gotta tell you guys, in terms of the build quality, this guy is really nice. All of the buttons give you a nice tactile and responsive feedback to them. And this device feels really good in the hands. Really nice weight to it. Really solid. Again, in terms of the design, really do like the design on this guy with the glass and metal. It is very slippery. They both are really slippery, but other than that, I really like the design. I think the camera look gives it a nice, nice little presence, little character. And I do like the fact that Moto finally incorporated an 18:9 aspect ratio. So really good design choice there. Good stuff. But that being said, in terms of the build quality and design, yet again, for the Moto G6, I have to say that it is top notch indeed, and I've had no issues. Now, jumping in, let's talk about the displays on these guys. Now, in terms of displays, we have 5.7-inch displays on both devices. We have a 720p display on the Stylo 3 in the traditional 16:9 aspect ratio. So I have to say it's a really good display. Whereas we have a 1080p display in the new 18:9 aspect ratio for the G6. So again, really solid display here. But that being said, talking about displays, talking about the resolutions, we have a 2160 by 1080p display over here, on the Moto G6, and we have a 720p display over here on the Stylo 3. That's 1280 by 720p, 720 display. Okay, now talking about these displays from a day-to-day performance standpoint, both of these displays are really, really good. Now, in particular with the Stylo 3, when I go outdoors, I found that I have to crank the brightness to about 80%, then I'm good. When I'm indoors, I have to keep the brightness at about between 25 and 50%. So that is a downside there. Talking about the display on the Moto G6, when I'm outdoors, I have to keep the display at 50% brightness, which is really, really nice, really good. And when I'm indoors, I tend to keep the display at about 10% brightness. Now, for purposes of this video, they're both set to 50% brightness. You know? But that being said, putting all that stuff aside, again, as I said, from a day-to-day usage standpoint, both of these displays are top-notch. So, at least when we talk about displays, I'm going to have to call it a tie. And I know what some of you guys are saying. How can you call it a tie when that's a 720p display for the Stylo 3 and a 1080p display for the Moto G6? And I've said it before and I say it again. It really doesn't matter to me the display, okay? Doesn't matter if it's a 480p display, 720p display, 1080p display, Quad HD display, 4K display, so on and so forth. The only thing that matters to me at the end of the day is that it is a nice, high quality display and it works exactly how I need it to with no issues. And for me, in terms of both of these devices, they have really, really good displays and they work without issue. That is why I call it a tie. And keep in mind, this whole video is in my opinion, and everybody's opinions may vary, and everybody is entitled to their opinion. Okay? So, that is why I have to say, in terms of the displays on both of these devices, it comes down to a tie, at least for me. So, moving on now, the next thing I want to talk about with you guys and gals is the hardware and the software in both of these devices. Now, let's start off with the Moto G6. Now, the Moto G6 comes in 3 different variations. It comes in the Moto G6 Play, which has, again, a 5.7-inch display, 18:9 aspect ratio display, still 1080p. It has a rear-mounted fingerprint sensor, and instead of the front-mounted fingerprint sensor you see here, everything else is the same. Then you have the regular G6, which is the variant that I'm using in this video. That one has either 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of onboard storage, or 3 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of onboard storage. In particular, this is the 3 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs of onboard variant here. And then you have the Moto G6 Plus. That one comes with 4 gigs of RAM, 64 gigs of onboard storage, and a 5.99-inch 1080p display. Okay? And that one moves the fingerprint sensor back to the front like I'll see here. Other than that, the internals remain the same. So you have a Snapdragon 450 octa-core processor. Okay? You have an Adreno 506 GPU. You have a 3000 milliamp hour battery built into this guy, which is non-removable. You have micro SD card expansion, and they do give you the ability to make your SD card internal adaptable storage, which is a nice touch. Up front, you have an 8 megapixel camera and your LED flash and light and proximity sensors across the top. You have a front-mounted speaker, which also doubles as your built-in receiver as well. Okay. On the rear of the device, we have dual cameras, one 12 megapixel sensor and one 5 megapixel sensor. And then we have our LED flash. Okay. The cameras on the rear are capable of recording up to 1080p 60 video. and 720p 120 frames per second slow motion, and both of these cameras give you the ability to take advantage of pro mode for your photos and I believe for your videos as well. Okay, good stuff there on the rear, and you have a bunch of other nifty features as well. Now, if you want to go more in depth on anything that I covered in this versus/comparison video, please feel free to check out the full reviews of both of these devices, which will be linked down below in the video description. Okay? Alright, so jumping back to the front, again, we have an 8 megapixel camera, which is capable of recording 1080p 30 frames per second video, and it can also do 720p 120 frames per second slow motion as well. Okay? Now let's talk about the hardware on the Stylo 3. Now the Stylo 3 comes in a bunch of different models, but only 2 different variations. You have a 2 gig of RAM, 16 gigs of onboard storage model. That's the model you guys see here. And you have a 2 gig of RAM, 32 gigs of onboard storage model. That's the model that I would recommend you guys go with. You have a 3200 milliamp hour battery built into this guy, which is removable and hot swappable, which is a really nice touch. Again, you have a 5.7 inch 720p display. You have a 5 megapixel front facing camera on the front there, and your light and proximity sensors. You have a notification LED, which is just in one color, red. Okay. Other than that, your front-facing cameras can record video at up to 1080p 30 frames per second. No other features other than that. Basically, just your bare essentials are in this device. Okay? Jump into the rear of the device. We have one 13 megapixel sensor, LED flash, and your fingerprint sensor, which also doubles as your power button. Okay? Then we have one rear-mounted backfiring speaker. Okay? Now, you do have microSD card support on this device as well, but you do not have the ability to make that microSD card expandable storage. You can only use it as portable storage in the settings. So there is that. And you have support for your stylus pen and all of your stylus features. So there's that as well. And that pretty much covers the hardware on this device. And again, I don't know if I mentioned it, but similar to the front-facing camera, you can only record 1080p 30 video with the rear-facing camera as well. Alright, so now let's get into the software on both of these devices. Let's start with the Stylo 3. And pretty much, the Stylo 3 is pretty much running Android 7.0 Nougat with LG's custom skin on top. So what does that mean? If you look real closely, you have the ability to customize your buttons. So you can see I've added a notification drop down there and a screenshot button as well. And you can also rearrange these. You do have support for your double tap to wake and sleep. So you can see double tap is off, double tap is on. And you do have a facial unlock system as well, but you gotta wait for the padlock to be unlocked and then you swipe up. Done. Okay? Other than that, okay, as I mentioned, you have a fingerprint sensor, and your fingerprint sensor is really, really fast. Good stuff there. And then you pretty much just have all of your LG features. So a quick double tap down on the power button will launch you into the cameras. Bang, as you see there. A quick double tap up will launch you into quick memo. Alright. But I have that disabled at the moment. Now if you press and hold your fingerprint sensor twice, you'll get a screenshot. So screenshot, there you go. Good stuff. As well as you can also do the traditional screenshot by pressing and holding volume down and power at the same time. So there is that. Okay? And yeah, that pretty much does it for your LG features. Other than that, you pretty much got a pretty skinned version of Android, as I said. So you can see it's themed out quite heavily. And you can also change some stuff for your stylus as well in here. And then here's what you can make your shortcut keys do. So you can also use the fingerprint sensor to take selfies with the camera open. And again, double press down while the screen is off, launches the camera. Double press up, launches quick memo. Alright, and just so y'all can see the software version on this guy, you can jump into settings, jump into software info, and you can see right there, we are running Android 7.0 Nougat with the January 1st, 2017 security patch, which is bad stuff. Bad stuff indeed, but it is what it is. LG is becoming notorious for not giving those software updates, but it is what it is. So that pretty much covers the hardware and software on the G6. Let's run over on the Stylo 3, my mistake. Let's run over the software on the Moto G6. Alright. So let's start here. One nice thing that I like about Motorola devices is that you have your Moto display. So you can see all of your notifications and interact with them at a glance. And then we also have a very fast fingerprint sensor on your Moto G6. This one is front facing. But other than that, you have a stock build of Android with Moto's custom features thrown in. Okay? So when I say custom features, you have the ability to do 3-finger screenshots. So you just take 3 fingers, tap it on the screen. You can do 1-button nav, okay, to use that to navigate your device. And really all it is you swipe to the, you can rearrange it, but you pretty much use your fingerprint sensor to navigate the device. Okay? Now, then you have a nice feature of mine that I always use. Quick chop to launch the flashlight. Another quick chop turns it off. You got your twist to open the camera. Another quick twist takes you to the front facing camera. Good stuff there. How you doing, guys? And yeah. Other than that, you got a bunch of other features in here as well. If we go into the Moto Actions. Now, you do have your swipe to shrink the screen, which the Stylo 3 also has. So, if I just swipe across on the buttons, you shrink the screen. That one's a lot easier to use than this one here. I don't like Motorola's implementation, because you gotta kind of, you know, swipe from the middle and down. It's right there. It's really hard to activate, and then it's, you know, it's easy to get out of, but when you want to activate it again, it's really hard to do. Whereas, taking a second to talk about this, it's easier to activate on the Stylo 3, and then it's fully adjustable on the Stylo 3 as well, and I can move it around. Can't move it around, can't adjust it over here. So any way that I swipe from, that's the side that it's going to be on. Okay? But it is easy to get out of it here, and it's easy to get out of it here. You just tap that X, and it takes you back to full screen. Forgot to point that out on the Stylo 3, but it's really nice that it came up here because it reminded me. Then also on your Moto G6, you have your raise to stop ringing and your flip to mute. Then you got your Moto settings, you got your Moto voice. Moto voice used to be really good. It was something that I used on my Moto Xperia Edition a lot. But then Google Voice got great, so I don't really use that. And then up top, you have your Moto Key, which pretty much stores your passwords and lets you log into all your apps and websites using your fingerprint sensor. So I really like Moto's approach here because they just went with features that they thought users would find most convenient and useful, and they didn't really throw the kitchen sink at you. And just so y'all can see the software, we are running Android 8.0 Oreo on this device. So you can see it right here. And we are running the March 1st security patch. So again, not the latest and greatest, but better than what LG is doing right now. So that's that. So that pretty much covers the software on the Moto G6. Now, in terms of the hardware and software on both of these devices, I'm going to have to call it a tie, because at least for the hardware, it's a tie. They both work extremely good and have little to no issues. For the software, it's a tie for me, but that really comes down to personal preference. Maybe you like the stock Android approach with the gestures that you know you're going to use, or maybe you like the kitchen sink approach with the heavily skinned version of Android. It's up to you. That's personal preference. But at least for me, in my opinion, I'm calling the hardware and software a tie. Now, up next, let's talk about the Wi-Fi in these devices. And this is where I can easily give the W to the Moto G6, in particular because the Moto G6 supports your 2.4 gigahertz band and your 5 gigahertz band. The LG Stylo 3 only supports your 2.4 gigahertz band. So that's a big downside there. But in terms of performance, both these devices do a really great job. But again, I have to give the overall Wi-Fi W to the Moto G6 because I have run into the occasional issue with the Wi-Fi on the Stylo 3 disconnecting, and then I have to go in there and manually reconnect it. And I know that it doesn't have anything to do with my network. I think it has something to do with the device. So just on that regard, the Moto G6 takes the W. But still, I know you guys want to see the Wi-Fi performance. So let's pull up a quick YouTube video here. And this will double as your speaker test, as well as your overall Wi-Fi performance test. So let me pull that up over there. Pause that. Pull that up over here. Pause this. And we're going to test this at 50% volume and 100% volume. So let me see if I can do this with my voice today. Okay, Google. Set volume to 50%. Okay, so we're set to 50%. Let's go back to the video. That's what I'm saying. Google getting good around here. And let's start with the Moto G6. Now, one thing I want to point out is, again, the Moto G6 has a front-firing speaker, whereas the Stylo 3 has a rear-mounted back-firing speaker. So, just wanted to point that out. Let's begin. Alright, let's scrub through the video a little bit. Alright, let me hit pause. And let's jump over to the Stylo 3. 50% volume. Oh, it jumped to another one. Didn't want it to do that. Sorry, one sec, guys. Oh, no. History. And this one. Sorry about that. Now I gotta include two different videos in the video description for reference. Okay, let's scrub through. Okay, now let's up the volume to 100% and do the test one more time. Okay, Google, set volume to 100%.
Alright. Okay.
Alright, and let's go back to the G6 and jump back to the video. Here we go. Enjoy, guys. Okay, let's jump back to the Stylo 3 now and run it again. Okay, so there you guys have it. Real quick Wi-Fi performance test, real quick speaker test as well. Now, in terms of the Wi-Fi, I already told you guys the Moto G6 takes the W. In terms of the overall speakers, I have to say they both get very loud, but in terms of clarity, I'd have to give it to the Moto G6 as well. And also, I have to say the Stylo 3 takes the L in terms of placement. You guys know I'm not a big fan of bottom firing and rear mounted speakers, so it took the L in 2 points there, whereas I'm a big fan of front firing speakers, which the Moto G6 does have. So that covers the Wi-Fi performance and the speaker test, and let's keep it moving. And the next part is the LTE band coverage on both of these devices. And let's just make this one easy. As I said earlier, the Stylo 3 comes in a bunch of different variants across the carriers. This one in particular is the Straight Talk Verizon variant. So this is a CDMA device, okay? So that means I have support for all of Verizon's network, okay? Now, you other than that, if you have an unlocked variant of this phone, it's only going to work on GSM carriers. So it'll only work on carriers like T-Mobile and AT&T and any of their MVNOs. Whereas with the Moto G6, it's a globally unlocked device. So that Moto G6 is going to work on LTE with all of your major carriers in the States and all of your GSM carriers and all of your GSM carriers abroad. Okay? So at least when we talk about the LTE bands, I got to give it to the Moto G6 hands down. Alright, next, let's talk about the Bluetooth in both of these devices. And in terms of the Bluetooth, I'm going to have to call it a tie. Now, both of these devices have Bluetooth 4.2 technology in them, and I'm very happy to report that I haven't had any issues in terms of the Bluetooth on either device. Everything just works, and I've connected up speakers, I've connected up headphones, so on and so forth, and everything just works without issues. So the Bluetooth is top notch. Okay? Up next, let's talk about the GPS in both of these devices. Now let me just pull up something for visual reference. Okay? Now, As you guys can see, I've tested the GPS multiple times, and I'm very happy to report the GPS on either device is top notch. Using GPS for anything, including turn-by-turn navigation, was a breeze and a joy, and I had no issues. So in terms of GPS, again, I'm going to have to call it a tie. Alright? Now, moving on, the next thing I want to talk about, and probably one of the most important things, is the call quality and speaker call quality on both of these devices. Now, in terms of speaker call quality, I'm going to have to call it a tie in terms of the receiver, okay? Both of these phones, when you're taking phone calls through the receiver, were very nice, crisp, clear, and loud, okay? The differentiating factor is on the speaker calls. I feel like the speaker calls on the Moto G6 were a little bit better in terms of volume as opposed to the speaker calls on the Stylo 3. So for regular receiver calls, it's a tie. For speaker calls, the Moto G6 takes the win. Now, let's keep it moving. Up next thing I want to talk about is the cameras on these guys. And now, for the interest of speed, my mistake, I'm just going to talk about my overall experience and how I feel about the cameras. Keep in mind, if you want a more in-depth look at the cameras, camera samples, the camera interfaces, please feel free, again, to check out my full reviews on either of these devices, linked down below in the video description. Now, let me reiterate. On the Stylo 3, we have one 13 megapixel sensor on the rear and one 5 megapixel sensor on the front. On the Moto G6, we have two rear firing cameras, one 12 megapixel and one 5 megapixel depth sensor, and we have an 8 megapixel camera on the front. Now, talking about these cameras in terms of photos, both these phones did a great job, okay? The only issue that I had is with the Stylo 3, it still has a little bit of a focusing issue. So it did, in general, take me a little bit more time to line up my shot and get a good shot, as opposed to the focus on the Moto G6 is top notch and it's really, really quick. So that was the only differentiating factor between these phones. But in terms of photos, I have to call it a tie. If you just wanted to pull your phone out, line up a shot, make sure it's good, and take a real quick photo, and it be good, as long as you have the proper lighting, you're going to be able to get good photos out of either of these devices. And the same can be said for videos as well. Sure, one doesn't have as many resolutions to record at or as many features, but in terms of just raw video, being able to take out my phone and record a quick video, both these phones are top notch indeed. So at least in that regard, I'm going to have to say it's a tie for the cameras, at least in my opinion. Alright, up next, now I just want to talk about the gaming performance on both of these. And one more thing I want you to keep in mind, we got a Adreno 505 GPU on the Stylo 3 and a Adreno 506 GPU on the Moto G6. Alright, now, in terms of casual gaming, these phones will chew up any casual games with ease. Subway Surfer, Fruit Ninja, stuff like that, not going to be a problem. Even Asphalt 8 will work without issue. Now, if you get into more graphically intensive games like Modern Combat, Mortal Kombat, League of Champions, stuff like that, then you're gonna see some major performance dips. Okay, you're gonna get a lot of hiccups, a lot of stutters, and you may have to adjust the quality to get it to run a little smoother. But at least in my experience, keep in mind I'm a casual gamer, so I didn't do anything too heavy. Mostly I just did Subway Surfer and Asphalt 8 with a little bit of Fruit Ninja thrown in there, and both of these phones handled that no problem. Now, that being said, if I had to get a little nitpicky, I'd have to say the the Stylo 3 handled the games a little bit better than the Moto G6. So in that regard, I have to give the gaming performance to the Stylo 3. Okay? But that's a little nitpicky. Alright, now, keeping it moving, this is where I would talk about the benchmarks. But at this point, kind of really getting tired of the benchmarks. But both these devices performed how you would expect them to. Again, Snapdragon 435 quad-core processor in the Stylo 3. Snapdragon 450 octa-core processor in the Moto G6. So, as you would expect, the newer processor scored a lot higher on the benchmarks, not by much. So, that's the benchmarks. Now, if you do want to see the raw performance numbers, again, feel free to check out the full reviews on either of these devices. Okay? Now, moving on to one of what I feel is the most important part of this video, let's talk about the overall battery life and the overall charge times. And this one's going to be really quick. In terms of overall battery life, I have to call it a tie. Using these two devices side by side for the time that I've had them, I found that, at least with my style of usage, I'm easily able to make it through the day with both of these devices. And keep in mind, guys, I am a heavy user. I stream a lot of music. I stream a lot of video. I shoot a lot of video. I take a lot of photos, so on and so forth. I'm a heavy user. Good stuff. Now, in that regard, in terms of battery life, in terms of screen on time, I'm getting anywhere from 8 hours of screen on time to just over 13 hours of screen on time if I push it with both devices. So again, as I said, the battery life on both of these devices is top notch. Okay? Now, moving on to the charge times. And this is where the Moto G6 takes the W. Now, one thing I want to reiterate before we talk about this is the resolutions and the battery sizes. Now, and whether or not they support quick charge. So, the Moto G6 has a 1080p 18:9 aspect ratio display and a 3000 milliamp hour battery, and it supports turbocharging. The LG Stylo 3 has a 720p display and a 3200 milliamp hour battery, and it does not support any type of quick charging in any form or fashion. So in terms of charging, the Stylo 3 takes anywhere from 2.5 to 3.5 hours to reach a full charge. Keep in mind that depends on when and where you put it on the charger at. Okay? Whereas with the Moto G6, it's going to take you anywhere from an hour and a half to an hour and 50 minutes. Again, depending on when and where you put it on the charger at. Okay? So at least in that regard, the Moto G6 takes the W. But, and let me reiterate this, you can go from 0 to 100 real quick with the Stylo 3 because it does support removable, swappable batteries. So if you don't mind walking around with a few replacement batteries, and when your battery on your phone dies, you just swap in another one and you're good to go, that kind of makes this evening. Okay? Because charge it up, we good. Swap it, we good. In that aspect ratio, that makes the Stylo 3 better. Because I just walk around with at least one extra battery. Oh, my phone's at 10%, or a percentage I don't feel comfortable with it. Let me swap in a fresh one. We back to 100. We keep it pushing. Whereas I'm going to have to spend some time on the charger with the Moto G6 no matter what. And something that bummed me out is that they incorporated this new glass and metal design, but, and this is just a rumor, I hear that certain models of the G line support wireless charging, but the models that came to the States do not. So now I have this pretty glass design that has no functionality whatsoever. It just makes my device slippery. So just wanted to point that out there. Okay? So if you look at it that way, you can give the win in charge times to the Stylo 3. But if we're just talking about plugging in on the charger, it's a easy W for the Moto G6. Okay? Now let's talk about the final portion of this video where I give you guys the price, my final thoughts, and a recommendation or two. Now, let's start off with the Stylo 3. The Stylo 3 is available anywhere from $160 to $225. The variant I would recommend, again, is the Stylo 3 Plus, or any variant that supports the 32 gigs of internal storage, because you cannot make your micro SD card adaptable storage. So you want to go for the most storage available. Okay? Now, at checkout, when I picked up my Stylo 3, the device itself was, what was it, $34, and then my plan with Straight Talk was another $45, and it came up to $185 after tax. Okay, so that's that. So the Stylo 3 is going to run you anywhere from $160 to $225. Now, talking about the price on the Moto G6, this one is going to run you anywhere from about $235 to $400, depending on the variant that you're going with. Now, the variant you guys see here, I picked up from Amazon, and this one was $235. But in particular, I picked this one up on the Amazon Prime payment program, and at checkout, it ran me $75. And I'm still in the process of making monthly payments. And how the Amazon payment program works is you do your first payment and your taxes at checkout, and then you have 4 easy monthly payments after that. So now I have 4 easy monthly payments of $47, and then after that, this device is completely paid off and it's mine. All right. But if you're just talking about outright pricing, again, $235 to $400, depending on the variant and model that you go for. And at least for me, I feel like I would stress, maybe potentially trying to get your hands on the 4 gig variant and the 64 gigs of storage variant. Okay? At least for me. But that being said, if we're just going price for price, which one would I recommend? Well, at the top end here, the low end here, is a $15 difference. $225, $235. So, just go with that. But if you just want a stock device with really good battery life, really good cameras, a really good experience overall, then I could recommend the G6. Okay? But if you just want a solid, inexpensive device that's gonna, do everything you need it to and have the battery to get you through the day, if not more, depending on your type of usage, then I can easily recommend the Stylo 3 as well. And you do get the addition of that stylus pen and the removable hot swappable battery, or swappable battery. It's not hot swappable because the device doesn't stay on when you take the battery out. Hot swappable would imply that the device stays on when you take the battery out, which it does not. But if you want a device with a removable swappable battery and still giving you the same all-day battery life and the same reliable features, then I can again recommend the Stylo 3, and in particular, the Stylo 3 Plus. Alright, that pretty much does it for my versus/comparison between the LG Stylo 3 and the Motorola Moto G6. I hope you guys and gals enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, please help your boy out and give it a thumbs up. That really does help me out. You don't know how much. if you would like to see more raw, uncut content like this, because you never really know what's going to happen when I push record, please hit the subscribe button down below and click off the notification bell icon right next to it so you guys and gals get notified when I post new videos. As always, if this video piqued your guys' interest, all links to where to purchase these two devices at some really great prices will be down below in the video description. So down below in the video description should be like a one-stop shop for you guys, and you should be good to go. Alright, that being said, I also want to say, if you guys and gals know anyone out there looking for some high quality, affordable devices at some really great prices, please share with them my channel. And also, I want to tell you guys, I hope everyone has a great day, and I will catch you guys and gals in my next video. Peace.